Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken by Concept. Jungle Nathan Mott, mid lane Curtis Morgan.
That's not your first
I know.
name, dude.
It's sorry. Let me repeat that. Mid lane Coach Curtis.
That's right. First name Coach, last name Curtis.
Boom! Surprise me, gank me, Nathan. What do I?
Congratulations on the Challenger, Curtis! Woo!
That's embarrassing.
That is. It took some time, Curtis. You're struggling through with your process.
Yep.
But
Actually, let's segue.
all right, we got
I've
to
got a
segue
topic on
already.
this one.
Yeah.
Already, straight away. So my journey, just quickly, I didn't really play all that much at the start. I tried to get games in, didn't get too many in though.
I
got there.
You're left hooked by the COVID.
Yeah, I got the COVID, and I would say I stayed at around 300 LP for a while, 400 LP for a while, and then I went to like 650, and then I dropped from 650. I had a huge negative part of my solo queue journey back down to like 400. So I lost, I think, 250 LP, like boom, straight up. And, just getting to the process now, fixed my champ pool, got that down pat. Now every game's feeling really easy. Like, I think I should be steamrolling to 800 easily. I had a client reach out, we're in a coaching session and he said, Curtis, it's been a few months and I feel as though like he's really demoralized. Like he's really low confidence. He basically, it's been a few months and I'm still not even at the rank I was at the end of last year. Like I'm still not there yet. And he was going on to say how low confidence he was because he's constantly comparing where he is now comparatively to where he finished at the end of last season, which led me to go into a massive spiel about how long it actually does take to ramp up to even to get remotely where you were at the end of the last season, right? And I broke it up into like different phases, right? So let's say season ends, season 11, season ends. You're usually at your peak towards the end, like in terms of level of play. You're usually at your peak.
Not necessarily.
Not
I think there's been lots of people that have peaked higher. I mean, look at my example last year.
No, but in terms of level of play, I would say usually towards the back. If it's not directly at the end, in the last month or two of the season, you're generally peaking in play.
Playing the whole time.
If you've been playing the whole season, you're generally peaking in level of play within the last month or two before the end of the season. Usually. It would be weird not to. So let's just really oversimplify it and just say that's the case. Last month or two out from the season, you're peaking at your level of play.
Yep.
And then you have a massive break. Preseason rolls around, right? Some people don't even play the game. The game changes massively. There's heaps of game-changing things. That lasts a certain amount of months. How many months does the preseason last? Like 3-ish months or something like that?
2.5, 3, yeah.
Yep, okay. Boom, new season. January rolls around. So it's been 3 months. Now there's usually some other patches that come through and it's a new game. But during that past 3 months, most people aren't taking their climb seriously. They're either learning champions or they're not playing at all or they're just dicking around. Usually it's very rare that people are genuinely trying to get better in the preseason. I'm going to say again for the majority of people. Then there's a new season, right? This is the next phase. Boom, you're playing, adapting your champ pool. Even the champs that you played before, you can't play them the same way sometimes. Will actually spoke about this, right? Where your client wears, you don't necessarily adapt to the meta of your champ pool, but you got to adapt the way you play your champion sometimes. Maybe because there's new items, the matchups are different. Maybe they've added a new champion or something. The way the game plays, the scuttle changes were actually really big. That influenced the way the mid lane changed out massively because people don't need to play for the scuttle pyro anymore. So there's all these things that change. So you got to figure out, how do I win with my champion again? So by the time, and we also know this coincides at the start of the season, Riot make a lot of changes. Like, it's a lot of rapid changes. Like, they go through the meta shifts really quickly. Like, every 2 weeks, the meta evolving because everyone's trying to figure out the new meta, like how the items work and everything. Boom, boom. Because this season was the Everfrost
Crown, Shadow Crown was huge.
And Everfrost was really cheap. Predator. There was some massive changes in mid lane in terms of itemization and runes. And this is basically only now pittering, and what the word is, like, it's kind of like
leveling off.
Yeah, it's kind of
stabilizing.
It's stabilizing now. It's been months really, it takes around 3-ish months just to
I mean,
stabilize
if you really
the meta.
think about it, it's a very short span. It's only, what are we, 3-4 months into
Yeah,
the season?
3-4 months in. But it takes usually around 3-ish months.
Sorry, 4 months in the season. Well, this is their fifth month, yeah.
Right. But it takes around 3-ish months to stabilize the meta somewhat, right? It's so rapidly changing over and over and over again. Even myself this season especially, I really struggled to adapt to the meta. Like, it was changing so rapidly. How do I want to win the game? And the reason I'm explaining all this is because... the last thing I want to add on to this, is that the ranked system also changes in a way. Like, sometimes they change the MMR and the way the LP works such that D4 in Season 11 doesn't necessarily equal to the same level of play as D4 in Season 12. Like, it just could be they've shuffled around. They could shuffle around the MMR or shift everyone down a little bit. You could D4 in terms of level of play could now be P1 or P2. We don't actually know, right? There's all these other things going on in the background. So taking all of that into account, it takes, for most people, months. We're talking 3-4 months, sometimes even more, half the season, just to get back remotely to the LP they were just at. Think about that. 3-4 months.
You
5
think
months.
you think people that they're demoralizing for some people?
And this is demoralizing for some people. They haven't. This is should be another little amendment to the solo queue contract. It's going to take months, 3, 4, sometimes even longer, to get back to just where you were in terms of like LP and level of play. And this is exactly the same case as me. I'm only now just starting to feel remotely what I was like last season, peaking towards the end of last season. I'm like remotely now at a similar feel for the game. I've got the meta down pat. I know how my champs interact in the meta. I know how to win games. Like, it's only started to now click for me. I finished at just under 1 at KLP, I think, last season, 900 and something, right? So theoretically, I'm still 400 LP, 450 LP off my last season LP, which for most people, if you think about it, if you're in D4, I'm the equivalent of what? P4.
That's
I'm
right.
literally an entire rank above or below where I should be, right? But that's normal to me. I just accept that's just a reality because, again, I don't compare my LP. The LP system's changed.
Well, remember, it's rank as well. Remember, once you get to the top ladder again, I view it more, it's a competition in terms of rank.
Right.
Because the LP was snapped in OS, remember? So,
Yeah, they changed it a bit.
So it's much lower, so they don't want
Much
people to be
lower,
really higher. So, rank 1 right now is 1,000 LP. Last year it was like 14.
Yeah,
was
1,400. And they changed it.
You're at what, 40? Rank 40?
Rank 40 at like 600
And
LP.
you're rank 10. So you're 30 ranks different, theoretically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
right.
I wouldn't view it too much
Don't
as
view it as
that,
LP,
the
it's more in rank. Right.
Because when you get to the top end, it's more the position
It's
you
the
are on the ladder.
percentage. It's all about
The
percentages.
percentile of the player base.
So my point being, for every listener out there, it's completely normal that I call this like a ramp up phase. The ramp up phase takes months. And that's why you can't just only improve, like come into the season halfway through and expect to improve and make massive jumps in your level of play. If you're only now starting the season in June or July, you gotta. It's the whole package. The preseason flows onto the early season.
Yeah.
The early season flows onto the mid-season, and there's a mid-season to the end of the season. You should be feeling really good around mid-season. Like, as MSI rolls around, that's when you should be really feeling confident in your champ pool, knowing all this stuff. Everything before that is just ramp up. Like, you're in the ramp up phase. So it's more of like a public service announcement, like everyone
chill out.
Everyone chill.
This is the reality.
It's okay.
I definitely think there's lots of outliers. I definitely think so. I mean, I don't know. It depends on the ranks, I guess. I mean, it's funny for my journey. I mean, I hate that narrative of not trying in preseason. I went fucking hard.
But you didn't do, yeah, you're an outlier in the
Yeah.
sense that there are the outliers I'm assuming you're referring to are the ones that really took the preseason seriously and so they had like a smoother transition heading into the start of the season.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. Yeah, I definitely have had some of my Soul 2 members get to their rank and exceed it pretty. Actually, I wouldn't say exceed it. They got to their rank very quickly,
Like
and
we're
then
talking
now they're struggling.
in like a month.
A couple of weeks, yeah.
Right, got you.
Or
But where
in,
are they
like,
now
my
though?
list thing. They're still just bouncing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of some scenarios for me. Yeah, some people just don't really have the time to put in the games because there is an element of the games. Because remember, MMR is still about the same, right?
You mean at the
At
start?
the start of the season. Isn't that the way it works? It's
Yeah.
like a soft
yeah.
reset.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just need to get the games in. But
Right.
so I guess some people would just... There definitely has been some people that have struggled.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more complex, right? Because it depends on how many games you're getting in per week, and maybe that differed to last year. There's many other things at play, but as a concept, holistically, I think it's important to note that it's very normal that it's going to take time for you to adapt to the new season.
Yeah.
Hence why you need to use the whole season.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also important just, we just talked about rank a lot there, Curtis. You got to be looking at the specific decision making again.
Right.
It's like what's going on because again, like even then, it's hard to say because you know how you always say you critique me for this, but I always say there's like common trends, common mistakes. Or do you agree with this? I actually don't even know what you take this.
What is this?
There's like diamond level players, there's platinum level players. There's like I could identify very easily what if I looked at a gameplay, what rank that person is, right?
Agreed, yeah.
So if you think about that scenario, right? Like I don't think that's changed really from the last season to this season. Maybe
Yeah, not at all.
Well,
Very
very
as in
small.
like, but is what you're saying, when someone, okay, let's get specific here.
Let's say someone who was D3 in Soul 2 last year, right?
Yep.
And now they're in Platinum 3.
Yep.
Right? I would still look at that game and be like, well, this is platinum level gameplay right now. Like, whatever, it didn't matter that you were diamond last year.
Yeah.
It doesn't make...
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
There's more going on here.
No, but what I'm saying is that like, it's important to realize that it takes time to get back to your peak. Like,
So you're saying that actually they've gotten worse, basically?
yeah,
Yeah,
you go
okay,
backwards.
Okay,
like,
yeah, there's definitely...
you
okay,
always
got it.
regress when
Yeah.
you don't play
Yeah,
the
that's
game
right.
a
That's
lot.
that's the key message, yes.
It's the regression, but also it's
Yes.
the regression, but the regression stemming from the game changing
Yeah.
as well. Because let's say that guy, that Diamond 3 player in Soul 2, that jungler, he might have been D3 because like he knew how, say he's an Evelyn player, he knew how to win games with Evelyn in Diamond 3 in that meta.
With that crab
with that
scenario.
the flow of the game. Like he understood how it worked. But then when all the mid meta shifted, all the matchups changed, and the jungle pathing is now altered because Scuttle's not as important. Like he has to, his decision making is inevitably altered, as well as like that's one variable on top of the natural regression that was already going to be the case. Even if the game was static, like even if let's say there was zero changes to the game, he was always going to be a bit lower than what he was in terms of decision making because
he stopped playing
he's
the game.
rusty.
Yeah.
But then there's the aspect of the game it changing itself. So there's two variables at play there.
Yep, that makes sense. I get your point.
Yeah. So when you look at someone who plays like at the start of the season, I generally ask how many games played have you got or something like that. Because then when I look at a mistake, it's like, okay, there's an element of rust here. I'm assuming sometimes with certain clients. Like I had a guy this morning saying, okay, I'm only just starting to get back. It's my first 100 games this season.
Yeah,
like
you should have no expectations.
and I'm like, well, yeah, we can get into it. I can roughly see where you're at.
Yeah.
But I don't go too, like I don't overemphasize certain things because it's like you're just gonna get better at this incrementally over time anyway. I don't need to. It's hard to even set learning objectives sometimes because you don't know if that's a real problem of theirs or not. Because so many things conflating together.
It's like basic mistakes that they've probably made in the past that they had to... how we talked about last episode, revisiting old learning objectives and stuff. It's like, he's got to get all through that process and stuff.
And you might not have to stick at that learning objective for a long time. It could just be a quick fix, like a week, boom. Oh, okay, remember this, how this feels, and then move on to the next one.
All right, I bouncing off that one.
Yep.
I guess I made a bit of a friendly remind. No, actually not so much a friendly reminder. Talking about being honest with yourself.
Okay.
Okay, so I have someone in Salter who shall not be named.
Okay. Will.
He this is Will for sure. He's pretty. So let's say if you join our academies, right?
Yep.
You'd say that you're on the higher end of like pretty serious about wanting to improve. You're paying money to improve, right? Would you agree?
Definitely.
There's elements, there's levels to how seriously you actually want to improve. And I have this one guy who's really motivated. He he asks lots of questions. He attends lots of the review sessions. He watches my gameplay, that sort of stuff. Even when I talk to him, he actually has some pretty good game knowledge. He has some good ideas, even with some item stuff that I didn't know about. but he gets really frustrated really quickly. And recently, he came to a review session, and I looked at his match history, right? And, there's like ranked, 3 normal games, 2 ARAMs, ranked, 3 ARAMs, 1 normal game, ranked, right? And if I think about me and me wanting to get good at the game, right? When I played, the question of like just my intense, I'm only playing ranked. Normals, ARAMs wouldn't even, it doesn't even go into my brain. Like, I just know that that's just a waste of time and energy because I was hardcore seriously wanting to improve. And I said to him, like, and again, he gets really frustrated and he gets tilted dealers dealing and stuff like that, right? I'm like, you got to have an honest conversation with yourself. Like, your expectations are way too high. I mean, like, it's fine what he's doing here, but he's like, it's sort of like he's lying to himself about how seriously he's actually, he's wanting to improve. Like, he watches all these streamers, like, he's a notice, he watches all like the high, like, you'd see someone who's like, he's a hardcore League player, but he's just not honest with himself that he's not actually really, really trying to improve at ranked. What do you think about this, Curtis?
Yeah, I think we need to preface this by saying it's completely okay to play normal games at ARAMs.
He plays with his friends.
And that's completely fine. But I think it's more about understanding, it's managing your expectations based off what you're willing to put in. Is this guy out of interest in like the higher level of play?
Or no, he's in gold.
He's in gold, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, getting angry, I think the thing that really, what I get from this anyway, is if someone's very irritable or they're very easily annoyed by, like, I would probe that. Where is that coming from? Is it coming from entitlement? Like, you feel as though you deserve a specific rank? Is it coming from you feel as though you should be better than you are given the time you're putting into the game? Is it because your friends are better than you and you're angry you're not at their level of play? You need to get to the bottom of the anger and the frustration, because that's going to limit that guy's value he's going to get in his games, because his intensity is just going to drop, and he's going to piss away games that he probably should win or make worse quality decisions. So yes, I totally agree that not everyone is on the same playing field. I've got people in the MLA that want to go pro and are completely 100% dedicated. They structure their entire lives around trying to go pro. I've got other people that are casuals and they'll play a 3-block or a 2-block, and then that's all they can have time for. I've got people who work a full-time job and it's just a competitive thing on the side. So everyone has their own journey. It's about understanding.
Well, my point is talking about the being honest and just being self-aware of what your journey is going to look like based on the amount of games and the time that you're putting into it.
Yeah, be honest. You're not.
It's very important. Let's say you have someone that has a full-time job and plays 3-blocks. Like,
they're not going to get insane results.
Yes.
I had someone who literally messaged me the other day saying, "Can I improve playing 5 to 10 games of solo queue a week?" And I said, "No."
That's very difficult.
You're not going to do it. I just said no. Yeah. Like, to keep it really simple, you're not. Because even if it was like, I would rather just cover my ass and say no, because it's so unlikely. It's like 99%. Like, you're just not. You need to be at least getting at a minimum 15 to 20 solo queue games a week. I think 15 is even not enough. Really,
well, my initial number's 30. Yeah, minimum.
Right, minimum. Yeah, like when I was doing just the 15 a week, I was going nowhere. I had to put in the extra games. There's a big difference between playing like 15 and 25 or something like that. It's actually a really big difference.
I agree.
So yeah, I think you're spot on, Nathan. I think there's an element of him being honest with himself. But I don't know. For me, like, what I get the most out of that is he needs to really find out the source of his frustration.
I agree. That's definitely something.
Like, it's always it's not confusing, but it is interesting to me that someone can be in gold, and watch all of your content and follow and watch other people play and have these resources, yet still be frustrated get that frustrated over mistakes. Like, that doesn't make sense. I can understand if someone doesn't know what's happening, because usually the number one source of frustration in League is not knowing what is going wrong.
That's right.
That's where most people's tilt starts. But if you know what's going wrong, it shouldn't really be that much frustration because then it's either execution and then you just need to get reps in, or it's just a matter of just putting the time into the game because you need to develop more muscle memory. So really, there's nothing really to be frustrated about. If you've got someone helping you, it's just a matter of putting the time in, and then it's just a matter of does he want to put the time in? Just contextualize it. But then, there could be some other things at play, right? Like there's emotional regulation and this ADHD comes into play. There's other things that really could be there, but I don't know this dude, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and because the other thing as well, where it ties on to, talk about people switching roles and champions very easily. He's also very prone to this as well because he's not getting the results that he thinks, I guess, I wouldn't say I don't think he deserves to get it, but he definitely focuses a lot on his teammates' mistakes. But
well, it could also be the fact that he's in the Soul 2 and he sees other people around him getting results and he attends these sessions. So he assumes that like he's gonna get more
automatically,
results than he is.
yeah.
But like you still got to put in the reps.
That's
like
right,
no matter how many sessions you're watching, like if you're not like 1-3 block isn't enough to like solidify all this learning that all this information that you're ingesting. Like it's got to be more execution than knowledge. Really, I mean, it's only a little bit of knowledge and then a lot of execution. A little bit of knowledge, a lot of execution.
All right, that's it for that one.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about this analogy. I want to get your thoughts on this analogy that I
analogies on this
used
podcast
in a coaching session. So yeah, I'd love to hear if you think about it, like this is the way your brain works. So let's say, okay, so when you watch a client, you're coaching a client. Sometimes you're watching them play, and it's interesting because you sometimes see them in a situation, and you're feeling physically like. This is terrible. Like you feel like in pain watching it because you're like, oh, you really need to reset or something. Like you get like a physical urge. Like your intuition is telling you that this is bad. Like your body in our mind, because we've had so much experience in the game. Like we already know what's gonna happen before it's even happened, right? Like, and your body is giving you this information. Your mind and your body.
This is me reviewing it.
Reviewing. Do you
it's
have
funny.
this?
No, what I specifically, you know what I do in my reviews, right? Especially the early game, because like early games for me in the jungle, they're just so methodical, like completely structured, like super easy for me to. I just have so much experience with perfect early games, right? I literally commentate. I'm like, okay, cool, full clear, and then you do the crab here, and the mid's not gankable, so you walk through, and usually I do step by step by step, and then I'm like, okay, now you do this, and then you go ward the gromp, and then it's like, and then he doesn't ward the gromp. I'm like, this is where it is. So I'm like, I'm commentating everything they should be doing as it happens.
Okay, right.
That's the sort of
I don't do that
tool that I've developed
because we do it a little bit different. I'll be more. My goal is more to think what they're thinking.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't need to commentate what I think because it's like it's just it's not overcomplicating it, but like I already know what I'm thinking, so I don't need to verbalize
I'd say this is more for my high elo clients. So it's sort of like especially it's like, okay, cool, you're gonna reset here, right? You're gonna reset, and they don't, and then we'll break. Then
there's a discussion.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My point being, but do you get like that itch sometimes when they should really be doing something and they're not? Like, especially when it comes to resets or overstaying or...
Yeah, of course.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm saying that instantly, right?
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
But you have that feeling as well.
Of course, yes, 100%. Okay, I've seen this situation a million times.
Yep.
I've made this mistake a million times. I know the correct response to this situation, given the wave states and this, and the game state and reading the map.
But you're like drawn to make that decision in a way. It's like you get like an urge.
So you're saying it's just, it's instinct.
Yeah, it's instinct, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting because then what I do is I probe. So this is the mechanism in my mind. Like if we're talking about visualizing how the mechanism works, I imagine a pulley system, and then there's like, I imagine like there's like kind of like something in the middle, and there's like a rope getting pulled on either side. So imagine kind of like a scale, and then on one side there's like a weight on one side and there's other weight on the other side of the pulley system. So if there's more weight on one side, what's going to happen? It's going to like go to the other side, isn't it? You kind of get what I mean? You follow me so far?
Yep.
So I imagine there's like a pulley system with and on one side of the pulley that you've got like, you stack up reasons why you should be doing X. And then on the other side of the pulley, you have reasons why you should be not doing that. So there's like the opposite. So talking about a reset, we're talking about one of those warding gromp or whatever, right? Let's make it simple and say staying on the map and doing something versus instantly resetting here, right? You could add on the reasons on either side of the pulley system. Like there's reasons to stay on the map, like even though there's less of them, but there's still reasons, isn't there? Right. And then you can, and sometimes they're like heavier or they're more impactful. So I imagine like this tug of war between two sides, like a pulley system. And I was going through this reset problem, and in my mind, I was like describing why. Like I imagine there's like a pulley. I'm getting dragged back to the base. Like I've got all this shit that is telling me, like you got to reset, you got to reset, you got to reset, and I imagine like it's like just a mechanism here. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what is it that they value so much to stay on the map. Like what's on this side of the pulley system? Yeah. Like why is my pulley system pulling me hardcore this way, whereas his is pulling him hardcore that way? And it's the same. We're doing the same thing. Like,
okay, I have an example.
You know what I mean?
I have an example. So, I mean, we have a rule in Salter that we do talk a lot about. It's like once you get to around the 1500 gold mark, you know, you should be really looking for a reset around that time, definitely. Right? And then it's like, okay, you know, we've got the 1500 gold, but enemy jungler shows on the other side of the map, we've got a stacking wave here.
You can just dive,
deny all that experience. That now becomes the biggest weighted thing on that pulley system, right?
That's the pulley system, right?
We were rudely interrupted by the fire alarm of our apartment, a fire test. God, so we're going to get back on track, Curtis. So I had an example about the dive,
right?
You're
talking about the dive, you did the dive, and you say there's a really heavy, like that outweighs...
Yeah. Like that, but that like randomly came on the pulley
randomly
system.
It like got added on randomly. Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think it's really helpful, like for a client to sometimes visualize, like it's not like there's nothing on one side. It's like there's stuff there. There's reasons to be making this decision, but they're just like there's either less of them, or there's like they're just not as weighed heavily. They're not as heavy, if that makes sense.
I need an example from Mid. Tell me an example.
Okay. Well, okay. So yeah, it was a very. I can't remember the exact situation, so I might butcher this, but it was something like, he was sitting on a lot of gold, and he was kind of low on resources, and it was just a perfect reset on a cannon wave or something, and I just kind of. Okay, he made a play, and it was like a potential play happening in the river, and I'm like, I think it was like. You could theoretically, like maybe go to this play and help this happen or whatever it might be. And these are the reasons why it could be good. But if it doesn't work, it's like, oh, this is what we're missing out on. Like this is the cost of that play. This is what we're missing out on. This is what we're going to get. If we get the reset, we're going to get all this.
So you're saying that you're thinking more of the future there, like what you'll get off the tempo reset here. You'll get another lane pride, and then you'll be able to get a dive.
Because I always felt a common analogy I'd also been using to add on to this one is kind of like I view every decision as like an investment, and like I evaluate like how much bang for my buck am I getting here? Like I make a decision to reset. Like how much bang for my buck am I getting here? Am I getting a really like a big component? Am I getting like replenishing all of my resources? Am I sinking this base with my jungler? Am I going to be on the map perfectly for the dragon? Or is it a very low value reset? I mean, I'm already got a lot of resources. I'm only getting maybe one Seapot stack back. I'm only getting an Amp Tomb. And, you know, like I like to think of bang for your buck. Like how much value am I getting for this investment in a way? Yeah. Because every decision is an investment. Like it actually is, because there's always a consequence for your action, no matter how small it is. There's always a sacrifice, but there's two sides of the coin every single time. So that's the whole point. Whether you want to view it as there's like a downside and an upside. And
I call it resource allocation. You know, like those games, Age of Empires and stuff like that. You can only like, get resources to like build an army, and it's sort of like you're putting your resources in a lane, like for the junglers with win condition, right? So you're spending your time and energy there. Like, if you've got a clear win condition on the other side of the map, you say bang for your buck. It's like, is spending that minute topside going to actually net me bang for my buck?
But how does that relate to Age of Empires?
Like resources, like collecting resources, and like you spend resources on it. What happens if you spend resources on a building, but then you get invaded?
So kind of like Clash of Clans. You can either upgrade your troops or you can upgrade your defense.
Yeah, that's right. Stuff
kind of like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you mean. Kind of.
Maybe it's a shit analogy. I got something else for it.
But yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's a really healthy way to view the game, but it's a very important way to view the game, because when you switch the narrative from being black and white, like this is correct. Like I don't know how you coach, but I even if I say something's correct, I really try to make it clear that this is just my interpretation of the game. Like that's the way I like to teach, because I want people to come up with their own hypotheses. Like no matter how fucking wrong they are, like it can be the shittest decision ever.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
as long as it's something,
Yeah.
and like I want them to start thinking for themselves. Like I've started to be less like I just get specific now all the time. Like I don't generalize. Very, very rarely I'll generalize. Like I will just get specific. In this game, in this moment, at this minute, you got to do this, and this is why.
This is why, yeah.
And when you get people to think like that, and like encourage them to make mistakes, and you encourage them to have their own
Absolutely. You
hypothesis,
have
they're
to
gonna
come
get
up-
better in the long run.
Absolutely. That's the only way you get good. You can't have a coach telling you. This is why we hate that whole backdoor coaching. Backseat driving. Backseat
Yeah, that
coaching.
backseat coaching. Yeah,
Because it's just got to be, they're
gotta
going to be
fail.
thinking and fail for themselves.
yeah, and I think that for me, I feel like even I have a deep respect for the game, to the extent that I don't even believe any of my decisions are necessarily the best decision. Even when I win on my main, like if I'm playing my best League of Legends, like my underlying assumption, even when I'm playing my best League of Legends, like I don't really use the word like, yes, I think it's pretty, I might think it's perfect or flawless, but in the back of my mind, there were probably other ways to win this game. Like there were other directions, there are other routes I probably could have taken. And someone else could have it could make an argument for that. Like there's probably exists. And I think that's just a healthy way to view the game.
Maybe it's
Personally.
role specific. I think mid lane's way more flexible than jungle.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is either gankable or it's not gankable.
Right. That's true. Jungle, you kind of have.
This is objectively, let's say Darius
Right.
into like a full melee comp. Like, it's like, you sort of got to be playing in that. But you
But
still
I'm saying
cool.
I'm talking more about like mid game.
Mid-game stuff.
Yeah, I'm referring to more to
flexible in
mid-game.
That's where you would be more
Like I
flexible.
guess in early game you have limited options.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I would say I agree. Mid lane still has more options.
Yeah.
But mid game is where most of this individuality can be expressed. I think. Like
Yes, I agree, yeah.
there's many ways you can win.
It's like we talk about Sybil's Elise, right? You verse
Yeah.
that. He's like camping some brush and like,
M4A1's Kindred. Same
yeah,
thing.
he's doing some crazy
Shit I never expect.
Yeah. But that requires a lot of champ mastery and a lot of game sense.
Yep.
And there is still reasoning to it. It makes sense why they do it
Right. Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah. But there's like an infinite amount of things that you could do.
But there's also mind games as well at that level. It's like you
Right.
pretend to think you're doing this and then you're actually doing
Or you
this
create a
and
pattern and then you break it.
Yeah, that's right.
There's many things.
it gets high level there. Which is exciting. That's what I love League of Legends.
Yeah, yeah. Nathan, I want to quickly, this very, very short though, I want to talk on TF Blade.
Okay.
So TF Blade, obviously he got I think he peaked at rank 3
In Korea. He's been boot
which
camping.
he's a beast, dude. He's a really, really good
He's able to get
player.
rank 1 on, NA, and I think he's been
EU. I think he's rank 1 EU as well. And he's an exceptional solo queue player. And I saw a Reddit post saying how he devolved in terms of his approach. Like he wasn't toxic typing at all. When he got rank 3.
Yeah.
And then he lost the plot. He was abusing people, doing the whole abusing then muting and the whole thing that he's not known for in a way. And he dropped all the way from rank 3 to rank 60. He dropped a metric ton of LP. And I always look at this, and at the end of that, we want to be careful here because there's two ways to view this. People can look at this and say, he got to rank 3 with no process, right?
Yep.
Or not no process. He's a process different to the 3 block, right? He got to rank 3, not doing a block approach, right? And then, so yes, he did, right? We got to accept that for what it is. He did.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the same time, though, one of the big dangers we say about the 3 block, the benefits of the 3 block, 4 block, 5 block process, whatever you want to do in Korea, because it's obviously shorter games, is that you're less prone to loss streaks because you cap it off. All right, well, I know I'm playing this block. I'm not in the right mental state. You got to reflect on it, do what you can to refresh, and then you can fix it in the next block or the next day.
I wouldn't even say loss streaks. I would say just playing a series of games where you're just really not at your best.
Yep, not at your best.
Because remember, you can have loss streaks and be playing out of your mind.
That's correct. That's a
Right.
good distinction to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's what it prevents you to doing it. Make sure you're playing, your high intensity, you're refreshing in between each block.
and especially if you're reflecting in between the blocks properly, and TF Blade dropped, and it's really interesting to see this because it's you kind of expect it in a way. Like people who play with that type of process, their swings are
Swings, it's like-
massive.
yeah, that's
Their
right.
swings are very, very, very large. So it'll be interesting to see if he bounces back because recovering career mentally like that is brutal.
Yeah.
Like he might just say, "All right, got my rank
Once
3."
you're derailed, it's
Like once you're derailed,
very
getting back
hard
on
to
track
get
is
to
goddamn hard. I always view it as like a train, and if the train derails, getting that thing back on it's like impossible.
You might be able to get it back on a little bit, but then you're just gonna get hit again.
I view it as impossible. Honestly.
Yeah, I think it's
if you're playing that way, like if that's your process,
Yeah.
I think there is no getting back on the bandwagon. I don't think. So it'll be interesting. Just a little side note. It's good to notice these things in other areas. You know. Nathan, what were the other things you wanted to talk about?
So I got one more here.
Yep.
So this is a friendly reminder just for people here, just talking about, questions and, thinking about the game and stuff and, asking high quality questions is, I saw this guy on Twitter and he was responding to a pro player or something like that. He says, do you have any VODs in which you play with 3 losing lanes that start stealing your camps after 10 minutes? It's the one thing causing me to lose my mind and I just don't know how to deal with it yet. And I just think of like just where this question gets asked from, and I see this is a very common question for jungle.
Is it actually?
Yeah.
Is it actually a common question?
Yeah. How do I play with 3 losing lanes?
No way.
Yep. Because they want to know the answer.
That can't be real.
It's real. This is a real question. It's if you go on the Jungle Mains Reddit, you'll see this quite often.
Wow.
People get angry when they steal their camps and stuff. And I'm just trying to think, okay, well, this is the first question I would ask, right? Did I do something that actually
100%.
like junglers can be in the right? Like I say a lot I show people in Soul 2 because as junglers we get flamed a lot. Sometimes I'd say most of the time we actually deserve what we get, but sometimes maybe we're not in the right. Like I always every time an example like we do a gank, you like typical gank. You're a laner, you've got the huge wave. It's not going to work, but the jungler's ganking anyway. You feel the need to compensate for him. You get double killed and you lose 3 waves, right?
Yep.
And then, let's say ideally as a laner, you don't go steal their camps, but that's the first question I asked. They're going to take your camps and they give up on the game. Like, that's fair enough. The jungler can fuck up games very, very easy. More than any other role. Would you agree, Curtis?
100%.
Yeah.
I think jungle is the role with the most control, but with that, it's like with great power comes great responsibility.
That's right. It can also explode the game, right?
But I would say that's not even the first question I would ask.
That's okay. Interesting.
The first question I would ask, again, I'm not an expert here. You're the expert here, so you could put me in place here.
The jungle expert
would be like, what did you like? What we when how did the lanes lose? So like, it's not like sometimes it could just be the case. You could just have a really unlucky game where all 3 lanes get solo killed. Like that could happen.
That's right.
But it's highly unlikely. It's highly likely.
Even if it did happen, you don't even put mental energy because
No.
that's 1 in every 15 games.
I would be way less than that. Nathan.
You think it's even less than that?
Way less than that.
Yeah, it's pretty,
I would say that to have 3 lanes that genuinely get solo killed without any jungle intervention would be 1 in every 50, 1 every 100.
Yeah.
I don't see how I very, very, very rarely see that. Like if I lose lane, I can't even remember the last time that's actually happened to me through 3 losing lanes. Like at least one of them's even. Like one's even.
Well, the interesting thing is that our definition of a losing lane would also be different to most of these players.
Okay,
as well.
but let's get to my question. My question would be, look, how did the lanes lose? Did any of them get influenced by the enemy jungler?
Yes.
That's first question. That's
a good
question
question,
number
yeah.
1 because you need to see if you could have prevented that lane from getting influence from the jungler. Or what were you doing if the enemy jungler's ganking? What the fuck are you doing? That's baseline. Before you've even made a play, like what have they done? What has the enemy jungler done? I think isn't that just make sense where to start?
Yep. Well, again, I think maybe that'll be question 2. My first question would be, how did I influence the game to make that, specifically that person,
Okay.
why are they still in my camp?
Yep.
Did I do something to really fuck up the game for them?
Right, okay.
And then that could be, it could be in any order, to be honest. It's fine.
Yep.
But the key message I want to get across is like asking those, instead of asking for like a pro player for like it's such a
General bullshit question.
It's a terrible question.
But where it comes from is the interesting bit, isn't it?
That's right.
It's
It's like, give me an answer to something that like is super uncommon. in a
Yep,
way.
give me an answer to something that's uncommon, but also, if it is common, it could be common, right? But they're the ones obviously contributing to it, right? So imagine like if you run this thought experiment out in your mind, right? Let's say you're this jungle player, and let's say you play a farming oriented jungler. Let's say you play Shyvana or you play like Karthus or something, and then you're having these games where you're the enemy jungler is regularly ganking other lanes, and your lanes are losing, and then you're losing the game, and then you're saying like you have 3 losing lanes. The question should then be, how do I prevent my lanes from losing?
How do I minimize the damage?
Yeah,
so I can scale up.
How do I protect my laners, or how do I prevent them from dying to ganks? So how can I help them, or how can I better deal with early game junglers? Like that would be like the question, but that's coming from a sense of like
Curiosity.
it's coming from curiosity, but it's also coming from a place of like I'm contributing to this in some way, shape, or form. Like I'm the center of I am in the driver's seat here. I'm doing something. Like there's something I'm missing here. It's like curiosity, but being humble, being very inquisitive, I guess. Whereas that question, I don't believe that question is asked in good faith.
No,
Like,
it's not. No.
It's not really. I don't even think it's genuinely looking for an answer. Like when they write that, I think it's like they want the response to be bad as well. Like I think they want the response to be bad.
Yeah, so someone's just saying it just FF. And it's like, oh, thank
Yeah.
God, that justifies my rank.
Yeah. Like they're
I'm
looking.
the victim. I always get the 3 losing lanes somehow. Right, just match you.
Like
It just doesn't make
that
sense.
actually happens to me. Like dead serious. An element of this is I've asked this question. So like a common thing is when I ask a question sometimes about a champ that I actively get frustrated about. I will ask a poor quality question because I want them to give me the answer that I want to hear.
That's right.
Like for example, like recently I did this. I get really frustrated about Shaco. I think I genuinely have a mental block for Shaco. I've recognized that. And whenever I ask people, talk to people about Shaco, I'm not coming in with being genuinely curious. I mean, I kind of am, but there's like another part of it that is basically wanting, say, Curtis, the champ's just OP, and there's nothing
It's
you
all
can do.
good, and you'll just lose every game.
You're just going to lose every game versus it. And then it's just such a beautiful, it just makes me feel comfortable.
That's right.
Like, I want to hear that. Like, my ego wants to hear that,
That's
right? Not, are you playing a lot of immobile champions into Shaco? Maybe your champ pool is not good into that champ, or
You're not tracking his early gangs properly enough.
You're tracking where he starts, or you're not utilizing the fact that when he shows on the map to get good resets. Or, there's obviously things that I could be doing better. But that's not what I want to hear, right? That's not what I want to hear.
You don't want to hear that.
So I think it's important we all recognize that. I'm sure we all do that in some area.
These invisible narratives, right? That are just.
But it's sometimes
humans
even
love
hard to be
narratives.
aware of it,
That's
Like,
why it's invisible narratives. It's invisible.
yeah, it's literally invisible. That guy might not even know. Like that guy asking that question, yeah.
It's just the narrative that he has 3 losing lanes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when I see people that ask that, if you could actually look at the game, there's plenty of opportunities for their lanes to win, but they just pissed it away.
And I think we all have. I think it's important, Nathan, that we get looked up to by a lot of people. They obviously trust our guidance and our word, and they like to know that we have. They like to think that like our opinion is very high quality, and they trust us, right? And I think that we got to be careful though, because I think that sometimes, like I want us to be more human in a way. Like I don't want us to ever feel like we're different to everyone else. Yes, our journeys are very unique, and we've come to where we are in a very unique fashion, and we played the game for a long time, and we've had this gaming background, whatever. But at the same time, we deal with the same problems that everyone else deals with.
Absolutely.
And like we just have developed very reliable tools to deal with this sort of thing. And I feel it, like in my games, when I have a game that was really rough, in the sense that like those games where you have to play perfectly to win in a way, like you can't really make many mistakes. Like maybe your draft is like not good, or your champ didn't fit well in the game. You just know you got to be flawless. Like you can't, one mistake and this is more a Halo thing though, right? This is more of like a Master Plus thing. But regardless, we have these games, and I have there's like kind of 2 parts of my brain when I have these games. There's a part of my brain that is saying, Curtis, a lot of other people, like I want to make myself feel better about myself. Like I will say to myself, oh yeah, no one would have won this game. Or, you know, even the best players would have lost this game, or my teammates were just dog shit, or whatever it might be. Like, I'm gonna have a lot of the responses that the average league player is gonna have, but I just don't let them. I don't follow those train of thought. I will replace them instantly.
Like you have the thought, but then you're like, okay,
I let it go.
Let's get fucking focused.
Or I don't even let it go. I actually just put something on top of it. It's like I imagine it's like a little rock, and then I put like a massive rock on top of it, and it's just nullified completely. Like I replace it with, okay, how did I contribute to this game?
Yep.
Like what could I have done?
And get to the details.
And straight away, like, and I think that we have the same automatic responses to everyone else here who listens to this podcast. We get tilted. We get frustrated at our teammates. We hate our teammates in certain aspects. We want to shit talk a teammate. We want to do all these things. Like, we want to be toxic in aspects, but we have ways to get around this. And so it's not like we're invincible. And I think no matter how much work you put into your journey, like no matter how long you've played the game and how good you think your process is,
by design, there's lots of things in League of Legends that's out of your control.
Yeah.
It's like I always see it like, you know, when in Formula 1, F1 drivers, when their car, you know, just shits the bed, you know, like say, you know, recently Max Verstappen, you know, really far ahead, and then he's you know, and then his car's just done, right? Like, he's dealt with that situation so many times. He literally will be saying in his head, okay, super frustrated, but, you know, this is out of my control, that sort of stuff. And he has just like a toolkit to deal with it to make sure he's focused for the next race.
For the next race. Spot on.
Because that's all that matters, right? So it's like, okay, this has happened, but you know what, you and I, we got to make sure, okay, this has happened, but we need to make sure we are focused for the next game.
Yep. And everyone has their own way of dealing with that. Everyone has their own coping or thriving mechanism, you know, to get through that. So I think it's very important for people to realize. I love that. It's
that way that we're not invincible.
Humans.
Yeah.
Like we're not.
Yeah.
The most positive people have the same emotions, same feelings. It's just how we deal with that, you know. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time, and we all regress. Okay.
All right, mailbag.
Yep.
Away we go. Song. All right, first email here is not a question, it's a success story.
Okay.
I love talking about success stories because just showing that, you know, what we talk about actually works, and, you know, people applying the BBC mantras to their gameplay. So this is a bit of a longer one, so wrap in, but I'm sort of going to summarize this. I'm not going to go fully into it. Title of this email is The Process Works, my testimonial of climbing from P4, Platinum 4 to Diamond 4 this season. Hello, Curtis and Nathan. My name is Henry. I play on NA. I just wanted to write to you guys to let you know I'm a big fan of the podcast. Also wanted to share a testimonial of my own journey with you guys climbing from Plat 4 to Diamond 4 this season, thanks to your podcast. I know you both love getting into the details, so strap in because it's a detailed one. His background: 31 years old, married, works full-time, used to play basketball and FPS games competitively back in high school, so he has a background in competing against others. First started playing League in Season 1, played almost every season except during Season 7 to 9. Finished almost every season that played in Platinum 4. When I came back to League in Season 10, easily hit Plat 4 again. Ironically enough, even with my competitive gaming background, I never took League seriously. I would just constantly pick different champs roles, and I never really tried to develop a process for improving at the game. My failure last season: after discovering your podcast in Season 11, I was inspired to try to push Plat 4 for the very first time. I decided to focus on playing top lane, and I will set my goal to reach Diamond 4. Diamond 4 was the rank that my brother and his friends would usually play at, so I thought this was a goal was easily obtainable. Long story short, I did not come close to reaching my goal due to my own self-sabotaging. I spent the majority of the season in Gold 3, which is well below my usual level of play. I developed many toxic narratives towards the game, many of which you two have discussed on your podcast. Number 1, I was entitled to get Diamond because I set that as my goal. I'd foolishly believed that climbing to Diamond would be easy since I thought that if I just played more games, I would eventually reach my goal. That was a very naive mindset, considering I never tried climbing beyond Plat 4. I needed to 1v9 every game. Since I was playing in Gold, I thought everyone needed to play around me. Me. I thought that I needed all of the resources to carry my games because I was superior to these people in my games. This resulted in me making very poor decisions in game, as well as being very toxic towards my teammates. Number 3, I needed to play top tier or meta champions because it was quickest and most efficient way to climb the ranks. This was a mentality that slowly creeped into my brain from watching Twitch streamers and educational YouTube content and echo chambers like Reddit. We've talked about the dangers of Reddit and Summoner School in the past. I did not review my games because my ego convinced me that I would not learn anything by watching gameplay against low-level gold players. This goes back to the entitlement, doesn't it? This led me to getting worse at the fundamentals over time, and it just reinforced all the narratives mentioned above. And then he uninstalled the game in November 2021.
Wow.
Done. See you later. Fuck this. How great is all those narratives? That's just like the perfect list.
It's the perfect list, actually. It really is.
That's everything that holds people back. Just bam, 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 bam. Just all perfectly. And then uninstall. Awesome. Love it. So so now it's for season 12. Even after uninstalling League, I still kept up with the BBC podcast. After watching the season 12 ranked guide, I started to feel the urge to play again. It wasn't until 84th episode, talking about dealing with failure, did I fully develop and resolve to try and climb to diamond again. That podcast episode in particular was really insightful and resonated with what I went through in season 11. My new process for season 12 was as follows. Number 1, maximum 3 games per day. I spent way too many games last season tilt queuing or playing with low intensity. By limiting the number of games played to 3, I would force myself to play those games with max effort and intensity, while also preventing any major loss streaks from occurring due to tilt. Bam.
Bam.
Bam. You know in what's the movie? The Big Short?
Yep.
How at the end they're talking about the stocks and stuff like that, or like they had the guy who was really bullish on the banks. He was the bank guy, and then you had Steve Carell.
Yeah, Steve Carell.
And then all the thing, and then they announced that it's dropped like thing, and then he goes bam, bang.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Okay.
It's like
I actually don't remember that, but I know which scene you're talking about.
You go on YouTube and just type in. I think it's Steve. It's like Steve Carell versus someone in Big Short. That's like a funny scene. That's where I remember from. Anyways, LOL dodge game before every 3 block.
Wow.
Bam.
Bam.
I found that I would usually play poorly my first game of the day because my brain wasn't accustomed to processing information quickly in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game. VOD review after every game. So we've talked about other methods to this, but this is what he did. Last season made me realize that I'm an incredibly emotional player. I think as most of us are. That, you know, if you're emotional, that means you care about the game. It's important to not think of this like a downside. It can be hard for me to objective my own gameplay. By constantly reviewing my games, I'm able to fight off any narratives that may start to develop in my mind. Alright, so then reflections on Season 12. My role and my identity in League. A lot of my issues from last season seem to stem from my identity as a player. I realized that this season that one of my biggest strengths as a top laner is playing tanks. I performed pretty well on Shen last season, but I shied away from playing him because I foolishly thought I needed to play carry in order to climb. That's a typical narrative in top lane. I noticed a lot of people who play League seem to have this selfish 1v9 mentality as well. In League, everyone wants to be the carry and sole reason why they won. A basketball analogy I would use would be that everyone wants to be Michael Jordan on the team. Yep. Having 5 Michael Jordans on your team isn't to lead to win because everyone will just try to shoot the ball all the time. You know, he talks about Dennis Robbins, Scottie Pippen, you know, how important they were. Again, the way that I think they're not supportive players. I mean, you can sort of say that, but they did their job. That's what, if you're playing Shen, right, and you do your job, you make 0, you're going to win majority of your games, just no matter what. Like, you know, play the champ identity, look for good ults, do your job, don't die in lane. Think about how impactful that is for a solo game, Q game, you know?
Always just do your job.
Just do your job. It's not about carrying. It's about doing your job. And it so happens sometimes maybe that leads to carrying. If you play Ahri in the mid lane, that's a really good carry champ. You do your job. So as for the actual climb to diamond itself, things were pretty smooth at the start. I quickly rose past my old plat 4 peak into plat 1 to 2 range and hovered around there for a few months. In order to break through this new plateau, however, I really had to hone in specifically on my matchup knowledge.
Classic platinum.
As you both know, top lane is very lane orientated role, and you know you would say that same for mid as well, Curtis. And you have to be a strong laner with a good understanding of waves and ability cooldowns in order to generate any sort of advantage. This was especially apparent in top lane now with the TP changes this season. Almost all my VOD reviews were dedicated to the first 10 minutes of each game, specifically revolving around trading patterns of wave management.
Excellent.
Lastly, I realized how important it was to ride the fine line of embracing the suck and maintaining your level of confidence. It is very important to keep your ego in check when you are going on a massive win streak. At the same time, it is also difficult not to start thinking you're the worst top laner in the world when you are going on a massive loss streak. In order to surpass your limits, you will always need to find that perfect balance between confidence and humility. Finally, on April 29th, I reached my goal of Diamond 4. At 31 years of age, I feel like I'm playing at my best right now.
Excellent.
At the same time, I don't feel like I've hit my plateau yet. With this new mentality and process in place, there's still so much more to learn, and I'm excited to continue on this journey for as long as I possibly can. Thank you for reading this, Henry.
And this is where the big fat check from Riot comes in.
There you go.
We're saving Riot. Honestly, this guy quit.
He quit,
He
dude.
legit quit.
Now he's playing. He's making skins. We should be getting a
I know.
cut for this.
Come on, Riot. Dude. No one gives a shit about this podcast. I mean, this is literally, I think, my favorite email.
That's very well articulated. That's perfect.
I mean, especially that first section talking about, like, he articulated his problems very succinctly, very well. And this is, I mean, how do you get better than that? He identified all the top five. They're probably the top five most common. Do you want to just reiterate what those first five problems were?
Okay, let me get it up again.
Because I think that this is legit everything for everyone.
That's right. Number one, he was entitled to get the diamond just because I set that as my goal.
Yep.
I needed to 1v9 every game.
Yep, 1v9.
I needed to play top tier or meta champions because it was the quickest and most efficient way to climb the ranks. Mastery. I did not need to review my games.
No reviewing, no process. It doesn't get much more simple than that. I mean, wow. I mean, first of all, thank you, it was Raymond, right?
Henry,
thank you, Henry, for writing. I mean, that
awesome.
was an amazing post, and hopefully that does inspire people who are on the edge, maybe of thinking of quitting, or maybe don't believe in this stuff, or think it's not for them. Maybe they're too old as well. Like, you've done it. I mean, that's a hard climb to do. Going from Platinum 4 to Diamond 4 is not easy at all, and you've kind of got into the weeds, got into the details, and got the results. So, and how funny is that, by the way? He went from thinking, D4 is this really easy goal, to realizing how hard it is, and then getting that goal, and then realizing that he can go even further. Because he now has that belief, he has that process down pat. He believes
confident. That's where
confident in his ability to improve. Not that he's there yet, right? Not even that if he will. It's like it's like he believes that he can get better as a player.
That's really important.
So big, so big.
Like having
that's where the confidence comes from. The confidence comes from the process. Believing that you will get better. We don't know what rank that will get you, but it'll get you. There's room for improvement, and he knows he can improve because he's done it before. Some powerful shit, man. Some really powerful stuff.
All right, next question here is from Luke. Title of this email is, can you improve without ever climbing? Dear Nathan and Curtis, I'm writing in following a conversation that I had in Soul 2 over the last week. So this is Luke, a famous Soul 2 member. He's an OG. Basically, the conversation was about following the idea you can improve without climbing. There was some concern about this being a false narrative, so I wanted to write in about it. Essentially, I believe that it is possible to make massive improvements in your level of play and never have that reflected in your LP for many reasons. I was basically saying that I'm fully confident in my ability to challenge myself and improve, but I'm not concerned with, and I'm not going to look for results in rank. As even if I do improve, it is unlikely to show itself in LP. I think it's important to briefly go over my mental justification for this in case there is something else there as well. I kind of justified to myself that this is possible by imagining the extreme case of a player who had refined their fundamentals to a point where their first 14-minute mark were absolutely flawless every game, yet somehow completely destroy the game every single time immediately after that. So like lose the game instantly after that. In this player's case, the incremental and even sweeping improvement they made to their early game would not be visible in their rank due to the larger issue in their gameplay, losing in the mid-late game. In addition, improvement and progression will be different for everyone, and a big improvement for me might be really small for someone else, to the point where it's completely unnoticeable. Basically, I'm saying that even if I put in a ton of work and never see results in my LP itself, I would still be happy with improving and being the best player I can be. Even if this is possibly a false narrative, I feel like it might be beneficial in some ways, as I basically never look at LP anymore, since it just doesn't matter. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about this, Curtis?
I do believe that you can improve and not get results, but not to the extent that he's alluding to. I don't like his example.
So you think it's too extreme, or you think that over the
It's only the short term.
Yeah,
it's
short.
definitely the case.
Like I would say that there's definitely a time limit. Like there must be something going on.
No, I view it like this. I've thought about this a lot.
All right,
so,
here we go. You thought about
So
this.
imagine, I'm going to use a mid example because I don't really know about how jungle works that well. So let's stick with mid. So essentially, let's say we're working on lane phase, right? And let's say you actually have you've worked really hard on your wave management and like your trading. Right, so let's say you start to have more intention with your waves. You know how to take really good quality trades. So you're starting to win more trades, getting your waves in better quality states. But then, because now you're pushed up maybe more aggressively, you're taking more your better quality trades. You're really focused on killing the enemy. In the process of doing so, you've actually maybe you haven't focused on your leaning and your warding. So you can get really good in this aspect, and you can take better quality trades. But until you actively work on your warding and your leaning, it won't matter because you're still going to die to ganks, and like the fundamentals join together in a way. Like sometimes one concept isn't enough because it requires two other concepts for that advantage you got to really be pushed through to create a meaningful lead. And there's many examples that in mid lane you can be really good at getting resets, but then you don't know how to take good trades. What are you going to do with it? You know, like you need multiple pieces of the puzzle. But what he said was like, you can have perfect fundamentals and throw on mid game. That example's bullshit because if you're having a really good early game, everyone else is going to be ahead and you're going to be in such a good position that like, even if you were to play your mid game terribly, it wouldn't matter. Like
it would have to be to an extreme, like you're literally wanting to lose the game.
That's not possible.
You could just smack your buttons.
But where it does manifest is if you have like certain skills and you need other skills to add on to it. Like a really good one would be like, I'm assuming for jungle, where someone actually is really good at like knowing how to look for a good gank. Like they know what a good gank looks like, but then they fail to execute. Right? They're playing Lee Sin. They can look at the waves. They know everything. Boom, they go in, but they screw the execution.
Yep.
Like you need two pieces of the puzzle there. You need the knowledge and the theory behind getting a good gank off, but then also the execution of how to play the goddamn gank as a Lee Sin. So that's a perfect example. You can have one of them and you could learn that, but you need the other half to get the result. But it's not to the extreme of his. So that's very important. I would say that's it. But there is an extreme example. This is dead serious, real example. I've had someone who I worked on their early game so much. It was Milk Puddle. We worked on their early game so much. His fundamentals became great. But he was playing Zed. He was a Zed main. And he would get so far ahead in the early game that he would enter mid-game like 6-0. And then his games were really unrealistic because he was getting so fed, having huge shutdowns, and then dying in mid-game and giving over massive bounties. So in a way, he was making the game harder for himself because he was so fed heading into mid-game and then giving a massive shutdown. Yeah. And then the games would swing like just huge. So that was like a weird example where in a way, because we overemphasized his early game, we actually made his climb harder.
Yeah.
But that was like a very, very unique case.
Yeah. Especially with Champ Zed as well. Who can start throwing the game very easily.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So I would say, yes, it exists, but not to the degree that he's saying it. Like, there's no such thing as having perfect fundamentals and then, like, losing in mid-game, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's an extreme example. But, yeah, I think that...
The premise exists, though.
I would say that, like... I mean, like, this is very much similar to me, like, in my journey, right? Like...
Yeah.
It took me, like, you know... I would say I was stuck for a couple of months, you know, and, like... But then, you know, eventually you will see results. Like, if you're actually improving at the things that are important.
Over the long run.
Yeah.
Yes. In the short term... Not necessarily.
Because the title, it sounds like he's sort of saying that you improve, but you just never climb. Like, then I would just argue that's not you're actually improving.
Well, no, that actually can be the case.
You think so? Never.
Yeah, like let's say someone stopped improving. Like say for example, there was that aspect, right, where the Lee Sin, right? If he for some reason never improved, let's say he had the champ mastery, but he didn't have the gank knowledge. If he never improved the gank knowledge, but he only improved that one time, he improved that one aspect of his like how to play a skirmish, I don't think he would ever climb.
Okay.
Right? Like theoretically, but that's not possible. Like
No.
as in why would someone randomly
Just
stop improving?
Yeah, that's right.
You know? But
Yeah.
like theoretically it's the case, but it's so unrealistic there's no point even mentioning it. Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one.
All right, next question here is from Fraser. Title of this email is Overthinking/Focus. Hey Nathan and Curtis, a big fan of the show and thought I would ask for some advice on a trending problem I've had for a while. I'm a platinum level jungler on the EUS server and I often find my level of play can fluctuate wildly from session to session. It can be difficult to describe. It feels like I've completely forgotten how to jungle during the bad sessions and can't make a decision. It's like the role of jungle becomes overwhelming. However, during the good ones, I am in complete control of my game, very proactive with my gameplay and able to predict what to do next. It feels completely natural. From just knowing myself, I think this has a stem from some kind of overthinking or focus issue. I even one trick to ensure consistency in my gameplay, but I seem to lack it for some reason. I always warm up before a session and review my games. Could it be I think I've mastered skills I actually haven't, creating peaks and valleys in my gameplay? I understand this might seem quite vague, but I appreciate any advice you guys have for me.
I think it's really simple.
I think it's really simple as well.
You go for you're the jungler coach. So
all right, so this is I've definitely experienced this before, and I've seen this in my clients as well. The fluctuation comes from some games that you have difficult problems to solve. Some games you actually know exactly what to do. They feel easier than obviously the games where you have difficult problems to solve, and that will look like, because as a jungler, if you can, again, going back to that, you can fuck up games really easily. Like your whole flow of the game can be thrown. I don't know what champs you play, but could be thrown off significantly because there's a problem. Like let's say a common scenario that I had, that I would have huge swings in my games where, especially last season, about the TPs to lane to to a top lane or something like that. Like I had to account for the mid lane TP. The games where the mid laner wouldn't TP, I would be very comfortable playing that out and stuff. But the games that they did TP, just that one aspect of the game TPing, I'll look super inconsistent. I'll look like the worst player on the server because I was really bad at adapting to that. So that's from experience that I've seen from people that have huge gap, like inconsistencies. That's very I would say that everyone has inconsistencies, but there's more inconsistencies in your gameplay, especially when you're in platinum. You actually have good champ masteries, because when you get difficult problems to solve in the game, you just crumble completely, and that will be the inconsistency. What do you think, Curtis?
I think there is some problem with his fundamentals because
Yep, that as well.
I kind of disagree with your take purely because if it was one thing. Like, if it was something like that, you wouldn't have such, like, a back and forth. Like, you would... It wouldn't be... I feel like it would be less... One time it's completely random, one time it's not. I feel like you would have failures, but, like, you would kind of... Like, it wouldn't be as regular as it is. I really do think it's a fundamental problem. Like, okay. I think... Because whenever I hear this, like, a consistency problem, I always envision... the bell curve. I mean, I get roasted. It's not a bell curve. It's like a skewed curve, whatever you want to call it, where like, we've got you're up. Say what you said. He's plat what?
Platinum, just platinum level. Yeah.
Right. So let's say theoretically, when he's playing his quote unquote best League of Legends, he plays like at a D4 level, and then when he's playing his worst, he's playing like at a Gold 2 level. Yeah. So he's got this massively like elongated curve that goes all the way from one like Gold to Diamond, right? Whenever you see that huge swings in consistency, I always think that it's a problem with consistency. It's a problem with fundamentals, because if your fundamentals are solid, you shouldn't ever be playing below like a mid-plat level. You know what I mean? Like by the sounds of things, he's saying if one game he's playing atrociously, like it's like he doesn't even feel like he's playing the same game. And then other games he pops the fuck off, which says to me that like, he's missing some fundamental aspects of the game. Like his bell curve is swinging way to the left, way too far to the left. So he needs to bring that up. It's not about him getting better. He needs to like shore up his fundamentals. So I think he said something about he maybe he's delusional about what he knows. Like maybe he's doing some really basic shit like he's ganking lanes that aren't the win con, or like not tracking the enemy jungler, or doing an inefficient
100%.
clear.
If I was to review those games, those
Yeah,
would be the
there'd
mistakes.
be some really
I see him
core,
putting them all the time.
and then it just so happens whether or not you get punished for them in those games. That's why some
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's like some games I'll review, right?
Yeah, but it's not something as specific as like your example with the TP. It's something more fundamental. Like it's something really
Potentially.
basic. That's like what I think.
We'll explain this.
And,
Like,
and because he has a lot of champ mastery, he's able to compensate for that. The games that he's winning,
he's just able to compensate.
he's able to
for
either
the
two things
pullback.
happen. He doesn't get
Yeah.
exposed to that problem, or his champ mastery, because he's a one trick, like overshadows those inconsistencies. There's no way if he's a one trick and he has that much of champ mastery that it isn't something really fundamental. It has to be something fundamental, like really basic. Like if you were to watch his play, it would have to be like the top 5 jungle fundamentals, like something in one of there.
Yeah,
It has to be.
Yeah, I would say the ganking. Platinum players, they struggle to see what a high impact or low impact gank is. Which
Right.
would be common.
He's probably like, he says he's a Rengar, he's probably burning R on like a really low value kill, or like.
But again, sometimes in jungle though, is that sometimes you get lucky and like there is no low quality ganks because just the way the waves just start bouncing and stuff like that.
Well, that backs
you know?
up my point, right? Like he can get away with it. Like he does these ganks and it just so happens that they work and he wins the game anyway.
Yeah.
But they're actually really shitty ganks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that won't work over the long. That's why one game he'd do that bad gank, he gets punished for it. And then
the
another game,
explodes.
it's you know, it's what he can have complete.
Because I'll review a game in Salty, right? And I'll literally say, this game, you had no difficult problems to solve as a jungler.
Yeah.
Because you path like opposite to the enemy jungler. You're playing
Yep.
a full clear jungler. They sat top. They fumbled over. You know the perfect situation as a jungler where you full clear down to bot
And
specifically.
it's just like a
it's a
opportunistic
free double kill.
gank. Oh.
You deny 2 waves.
and you look like a genius.
Yeah, but like that's just simple.
Standard.
There's no difficult problems
No.
to solve. Those games are very easy to execute. But think about how big of a lead. I feel like there's no other
if
role in
jungle
the
gets
game.
one kill in the early game, I feel like they're just
Game's hard.
The game's
Theoretically, if they get a good reset, they get their
yeah. If they have a good clear and they get a kill and they get a good first reset,
specifically a full clear, if they're able to full clear and get a gank off,
it's
it's unbelievably.
dude. I
insane.
feel like in my reviews a lot of the time, by the
Yeah.
way, when I'm reviewing my mid lane clients,
Yeah.
and if they die to a jungler in the early game, it's like I'm thinking, fuck me. Like they don't. I
Really?
can't articulate to the client how big that is.
just how bad it is.
Just
yeah.
how bad it is. If you give Diana jungle one kill, like they full cleared and you've given them a kill, even if your lane was fine and you didn't miss any CS, the game is
becomes
going to
hard.
be so
Because, like,
hard.
you're pretty much
'Cause
locked
Diana
into-
is so nasty,
You're gonna be struggling. That like the
That
moment that
Diana-
happens, there's gonna be team fights in that game.
and
that-
Diana is going to kill you.
Yeah.
Again, there's certain junglers that if I give a kill to, I'm already thinking I've lost full control of the game. Like
Really?
if I give a kill to a Kane,
yeah.
a Kha'Zix, a Diana, an Echo.
That's so funny. There's none of the champs I play. So Curtis always thinks he can beat me.
Yeah, if you get a kill on Rek'Sai, I don't give a
You
shit.
don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit.
Oh, there you go.
Or Xin Zhao or Rek'Sai. Hecarim's a problem though. You play Hecarim?
No, I don't. No.
You used to.
Yeah.
But if Hecarim got a kill, I'd feel.
What about volleyball? I play volleyball these days.
No,
Okay.
the only jungler where you played that I feel like if you got a kill, it's game over is like Olaf.
Yeah,
Like if you got a kill on Olaf in the early game, I'm thinking I'm done.
because it's just a methodical.
Yeah. It's just methodical. He's just gonna stack drags. I can't do anything here. I can't.
Yeah.
My jungler's gonna get screwed. You're gonna full clear over and over again. I can't do anything about that. It's just like I'm just going through the motions. I'm like just waiting until like then it's just a matter of how do I get as strong as possible to deal with you. But you play a different way. It's not about you. The game's not about you when you play Xin Zhao and Rek'Sai.
That's right.
It's about the
my team.
laners. It's
Yeah,
about
right,
getting
yeah.
your other lanes ahead.
Yeah.
That's why that explains that, right? Whereas the Kha'Zix is the carry, the Diana, the Echo, the other champ I said, whatever.
Well,
Kane.
I'm not going to be able to get a low challenger unless I switch my champion and snipe
No,
Curtis
that's
every
not-
single day.
That's not that's the case at all.
I'm switching it.
You've beat me many times by
exactly.
dominating my side lanes
Yeah,
and getting
no,
out
I
of
have.
control
I
like
have.
with your side lane.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point being, I think it's a fundamental problem.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, that's. I think that's a given. That's just an experience that I've had. Is that?
It's something that he probably thinks he's doing.
Yeah.
It's something that he probably thinks he's doing.
Yeah.
That he yeah. But he's not.
Yeah.
or he's something he doesn't even know. Could be.
Most likely, yeah. It's interesting. I had someone was saying, like, what games should I bring to review? And one of the more seasoned veteran Soul 2 players says, every time I review a game and like I bring it, no matter what it is, a win, loss, anything like that,
You're gonna get something.
like Nathan will point out something that I missed.
Yep.
That was really important, like tenfold. And he's a platinum player.
Right. To add on to that though, I do feel as though there is such thing as like a bad game to bring in.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
Like,
Yeah.
funnily enough, to add on to that last question, I get clients sometimes where they have a game and I'm like, you played this. I had a game where they're versing a Nunu. I think they're playing some mage and they were shoving into a Nunu. It was like, I think they were playing versing Nunu Yasuo or Nunu Akali. I can't remember what it was. And they were shoving. But the Nunu just never came mid.
Really?
The Nunu just gained sides on repeat. And I'm like, you just got so lucky.
Yeah.
And he killed it, right? He dominated. I'm like,
Ah.
this was so lucky.
Yeah.
Like, in an alternate reality, you're shoved up a level 3, you have no ward, Nunu just comes
That's a
by
free
me, you're
kill.
dead. You're literally, I even said, you're dead here, you're dead here, you're dead here. I said
Yeah.
like 4 times in the void, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. But like, the Nunu never came. It happens all the time.
What rank was that?
I think it was platinum.
Junglers, it's very easy to deny mid lane, ignore mid lane because
Junglers are shocking at ganking mid lane. In
you even
general.
said that about my gameplay as well.
Yeah, that's when
the best jungler.
You know what's so fascinating? If you removed all name tags and going into the game, like I reckon there's every jungler I verse. If you told me it was like a player on the challenger ladder, I could tell you
Just the way they're ganking.
the way the jungler played this game. I could actually probably with if you gave me like 5 names, like I could pick which one out of those 5 names, which jungler it was. Every jungler has very obvious tendencies. Very obvious tendencies.
Very
It's so interesting. And your tendency is that you're shocking a ganking mid.
Yeah.
Or your mid ganks are really telegraphed. It's one or the other. But you're very good at ganking sides. You're very good at snowballing sides. You're probably one of the best junglers at snowballing sides. You're one of the best junglers at playing around objectives. Like, you're really good at playing around objectives. Like, I know that when you get ahead, you're going to push the pace of the game. Like, I know I'm going to be pushed. Like, it's going to be a hard game if you get ahead. Like, your win con assessment is one of the best. But your skirmishing is shitty. And your mid ganks are shitty. But, yeah, so every jungler has their strengths and weaknesses, I've noticed. Like M4A1, the best mid ganker. No one's even remotely close. Like it's not. It's like a different ball game.
It is.
Like I've never felt so pressured by any. No matter what he plays, Nocturne, Jarvan, Kindred.
Crazy Nocturne. Nocturne can't game.
He's so good at every
fuck?
jungler.
3-6. Like it's fun.
Like he knows how to kill people like really, really well in mid.
Oh, it's on the learning objective list.
But what I think though, like whenever I've seen these players, like you don't have to be good at everything as a jungler though. I feel like these junglers that I'm versing, like they all have their unique strengths, and I feel like in jungle you can just have your unique way of winning the game.
You can.
That's how I feel.
I mean, there's some players, that play Gwen and stuff like that. They just outscale type thing.
Like there's so many ways to win in jungle. I do feel like so many unique ways.
It's a cool role.
It is. It's a fun role. Definitely, I can see how you could get really into it.
All right. Well, that's it for today's episode, Curtis.
Lovely.
Any parting words?
Nearly at 100. There's gonna be a party,
Celebration.
champagne,
Party poppers.
Everyone who watches this episode gets a free ticket to Australia for a live viewing party in Nathan's apartment.
It's not happening, Curtis. That's fake news.
Dial this number and you will get delivered.
Dial this number on the screen.
Ticket.
3-part free payments. All right. That's it, everyone. Good work. Let's keep on improving, and we'll see you on the Rift.